What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, Pete's Carport. On this episode, we're going to basically jump right into doing some kind of major repairs already on our 1991 Mercedes 500 SL, which is right behind me. I did a quick video on picking that car up. I went ahead and purchased that, got a really good deal, and just to break it down, the gentleman told me the rear wheel bearing had gone bad. And it did seem like that, but after investigating and driving it, I found that it was a much worse situation, but it's still fixable. And I believe the drive shaft support or bearing or both have gone bad. Let me go ahead and cut in the sound that it had while I was driving over here, and I was doing about 15 miles an hour with my hazards on, as you guys will see. So check this out to give you an idea of what you might be experiencing. Today I'm going to show you guys how you can look at your flex disc, which I've already looked at, your transmission mount, bearing support, and your bearings. Now those get a little more difficult because you do have to remove your drive shaft. I'm going to get under the car now and show you guys. Oh, also real quick, I decided to try to videotape this video in 4K. So it does limit the amount of time that I can record it, but I'm hoping it's going to give a little bit better quality and give you guys a better experience so you can see the things that I'm filming a little bit better. And I'll just break down the videos into more sections and kind of splice them together, and you guys won't even be able to tell. So I'm going to go ahead and dive up underneath this car. We've already got the whole thing jacked up, and I'm going to explain to you how we've got to remove the exhaust so that we can then further examine the drive shaft and make sure that we're repairing the proper thing. So let's get underneath the car and then we'll go from there. Okay guys, so we've got the car jacked up pretty good, but I wanted to show you, I thought we were going to be able to really access the drive shaft rubber boot underneath the bearing to see if that was good, because that's my guess of why we're getting that crazy thumping vibration. So right now, this is your exhaust system, which we've got to remove, because if I step back here, you'll see it kind of covers everything, and then even if you got up under here, you've got this cover that covers the drive shaft. So we have no visibility to the drive shaft except for here where we can see our flex disc there, and that's our front flex disc. And then we come back down to the end and we can see our rear flex disc. So obviously we could not only view them, but we could change those out without removing the drive shaft. But in order to inspect the drive shaft, basically bearing rubber cover, I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but that's what we're wanting to look at, because I think that's what's causing our issue based on other people's experience. So in order to remove this exhaust, truthfully, you got to go right here, and then unfortunately, because this pipe goes back up here, it's hard to see, we're going to have to remove it up in there in order to remove this completely. And so I'm probably going to remove it in sections, because I do want to put an exhaust on this car, and I want to probably keep the primary cats that are right here, since they do have an O2 sensor. So I want to remove it from here, and then I'll probably bring it down to a shop and see if they can fit some straight pipes onto there. And of course we'll test the sound first, just with these main cats here and everything else removed. If it's just too obnoxiously loud, then we'll go ahead differently on it. But today's video is going to mainly be about, we're going to take off all this exhaust, and then we're going to examine our drive shaft. So sometimes you've got to be creative. So this end of the bolt was completely rusted out to where I couldn't get a socket on it, but I could get this side but couldn't reach a socket in there. So I got myself an open end wrench, and to break it I slid this bar on there and was able to break it loose, and I've got this vice grip on the other end. It's just kind of locked into place so I can keep turning this. So sometimes these things are going to take a little time. You've got rusted bolts. You're underneath the car with very minimal space, but it all can be done. I'm going to show you guys how you can do this at home, just taking your time and knowing that you might need a few days to finish this off. Now the great thing is the bolts that were up there, I lubricated them extremely well, and that came right off. So we're already off up there, and we're working on separating the second part of the Y. So let's go ahead and get that off, and I'll show you guys when the exhaust is down. Okay, after that exhaust gave me some hell, you can actually get a much better view now with that exhaust out. So this is just a cover, but you can see mine's tore up, and that could be from the drive shaft, I'm not sure. So we're gonna have to take these bolts off, and there's one more plate there, and that will reveal our entire drive shaft. But I'm gonna go ahead and start it up, because if you're like me, I love to hear what cars sound like when you remove entire exhaust systems, and then what they sound like when you finally modify them to your tasting. So let's go ahead, and hopefully it'll pick up the sound. I'm guessing it's going to be really loud, probably throw some codes because we got our O2 sensor there, but what the hell, we got it off. Let's go ahead and have some fun. Okay, so this shields just some 8mm bolts that come out, and check this out, guys. This is so bad. Oh my gosh. So you guys are seeing this for the first time with me. That's that rubber sleeve that goes over the bearing, and it is just completely disintegrated. So you guys can see here, in order to really take a look at your bearing boot, or whatever that's exactly called, you've got a support brace right here too, and then this I think is supposed to be somehow attached to that, and it's come undone. So you guys are doing this is the first time I have ever done anything like this on any Mercedes. So I've basically had the flex discs changed, and I've went ahead and checked them out and realized I needed new ones on my other car, my W140, but never have I taken the exhaust off and examined this. So in reality, I spent a full day yesterday kind of putting things together. I would say 2 to 3 hours just to get the exhaust off, unless you have a lift. It's probably pretty quick. And now we're going to get into the deep stuff where we have to remove the drive shaft in order to replace this. And I'm just going to go ahead and do the bearing as well. I'm also debating on whether to pull all this down, bring it to a shop, because the bearing needs to be pressed, and I don't want that to be done wrong. But I will let you guys know how much that costs me if I go that route, or I'll even try to get a quote. And if you do it on your own, what is necessary, because they do sell kits, and I know auto parts stores allow you to rent tools. I just don't know if it's going to be the proper one for this. So next step, I'm going to be basically showing you guys how we're going to be removing this, and from what I know right now, it's going to have to come off. These flex disc bolts are going to have to come off on both ends, and you're going to want to mark your shaft so that when this comes apart, it all lines up, because they are balanced from what I've read. Some people claim there doesn't matter, but a lot of the really old school professionals claim this is balanced, so you do not want this to be out of a line. So I'll show you how I'm going to mark it. There's several different ways you can do this. I believe I'm going to use tape all the way across, and I might even mark it with some sort of white marker or something. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just clean this whole thing down just so I can mark it with something, and whatever I use sticks, and then I'll fill you guys in. Okay guys, so after removing the exhaust, I realized I want to cut this video into two parts, focusing on examining your flex disc, which we talked about. So you really want to look for any types of cracks, and you can do this with the exhaust up in there, and then examining your transmission mount. Now your flex discs obviously have the front and back, so make sure you check both of those. Very commonly they will get cracks in there, cause issues. If you have a lift, it is quite easy to remove these with the exhaust still on. But viewing other videos and looking at forums, it's way easier to just take the exhaust down. It's going to save you time and change those out, and it's going to cost you more time. The transmission mount is very easy. So you can actually just undo these bolts here on each side, and these two bolts here. It's going to allow you to drop it down, and the transmission mount is going to kind of stay in place. You do have clips that are probably holding wires that could be connected. So just be careful taking it out, and you'll be able to view this, and you're just going to look for cracks. It's a very inexpensive part, so if you have any thought that it might be going bad, just go ahead and change it. We're going to change this, and I think mine is still good, just because we're changing out all of the rubber pieces that have to do with this. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this down now, because it's not part of the drive shaft, and show you guys how that changes out, and then kind of end the video there. And then we'll go into the next set. We'll be removing the drive shaft completely, changing out our flex disc completely, and then also changing out that bearing and center support that you guys saw that went bad. So in order to be able to look at your center support, you do need to take the exhaust off. So that is really the last step to this video. If you wanted to just look over everything and make sure everything's good, you will have to take off that exhaust, but you will not be able to view this area on this specific car without taking off the exhaust. So let's go ahead and drop down our transmission mount, change that out, and I'll give you guys parts numbers and everything on that. So next step is going to be to remove the transmission brace mount. You want to make sure you support the transmission with either a jack stand or jack. As you can see, I have a jack stand there. You have 4 17mm bolts on the outside, 2 13mm bolts on the inside, but you're going to see here, after removing these bolts, you still have one more bolt on the top. I thought this was going to be easy to access, but after looking at it, it was best to remove the drive shaft, because if we try to do it this way, it's just going to make it more difficult, and we're already going to be removing the drive shaft. So guys, stay tuned. This is going to be the end of this video, but in the next video, we're going to pull this drive shaft out.